Welcome, Impactful Parents. It's time for the Impactful Parenting Podcast, where I give you parenting tips and resources to make you a more impactful parent to your school-age child. I am your host, Kristina Campos. Have you ever sat in your car for just 5 minutes after running errands, staring at the wheel, and realizing that you're carrying a weight you can't quite put into words? Have you ever experienced a conflict at home and walked away thinking, am I crazy? Am I just being too sensitive? Well, this episode is for you because today we're pulling back the curtain on the subtle, quiet dynamics that drain a mother's energy and erode her confidence. Things like emotional withdrawal and the exhausting cycle of the silent treatment. On the outside, you're handling it all. The school schedules, the lunches, the daily hustle. But at home, you're feeling lonely, dismissed, or like you're constantly walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. Well, today we're having a conversation that every single mom needs to hear, whether it's your own relationship or to help you understand a friend who seems to be shrinking. We're talking about those quiet, painful patterns we often brush off, like the silent treatment or emotional withdrawal from our partners, and how to reclaim your voice back, how to rebuild your self-trust, and how to move from just surviving to truly soaring. So let's dive in. Hello, my name is Kristina Campos, and I'm founder of The Impactful Parent. And I help parents of school-age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of 4, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school. And today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Amma K. Karikari. And Amma helps mothers understand emotional harm, rebuild self-trust, and move forward with clarity. She's the author of a book called Silenced to Soaring. It's an empowerment workbook designed to help women make sense of patterns like the silent treatment and emotional withdrawal. And I'm happy to have Amma on the Impactful Parent stage today to talk about moms who experience some emotional abuse and how it starts, how it progresses, and most importantly, how moms can protect themselves. So let's dive in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So in your book, it's called Silenced to Soaring. You focus on things like the silent treatment and emotional withdrawal. So to a lot of moms, these are just, they feel like really bad. It feels like a really bad argument or a partner just cooling off. So where is that line between a healthy need for space and actually experiencing some emotional harm?
I'm grateful you asked that question because this is something that confused me and kept me in cycles of abuse for a very long time. So I would like to first start with my definition of the silent treatment. I am defining the silent treatment as the withdrawal of communication and silence for 24 hours or more, generally without any warning, and accompanied by a very hostile, angry, intense energy. And then the third part of it is that when the person comes back, the person does not repair. The person expects things to go back as usual without any explanation as to what happened. So there's no, this is why I was upset. There's no dissecting of the situation. This is in contrast to 2 other phenomena that are very often confused with the silent treatment. And that's one, the cooling off or cool down period, when one person says, I'm flooded. I need 24 hours to think. I need 2 hours to think. I need 5 hours to think. And then comes back and says, I was hurt when, or this is what I think, or whatever it may be. Additionally, there's another phenomena that I will discuss called the shutdown. So the involuntary shutdown is when one partner is emotionally triggered and has a sort of flight or freeze response, where this person just tears out of the room, gets into their car, drives off, but then comes back and repairs. Or the person stops talking, freezes, but then comes back and repairs. So now I'm not justifying the shutdown. Someone who is experiencing a shutdown really does need to go and do the work. therapy, EMDR, yoga, mindfulness, whatever it is. And I'm saying that that's painful, but that is not what I am defining as the silent treatment, which is abusive. It's a pattern in which the person, in order to control, dominate, and manipulate, stops communication, knowing that that is going to be very painful to the other partner and therefore impact that person's behavior. Very often people feel completely destabilized by it and start fawning. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? Etc. And they start panicking and trying to accommodate and acquiesce to the person in order to get that connection back. And in that way, it's abusive because you're controlling someone else's behavior.
You also talk a little bit about that fine facade where so many moms are high functioning and are managing schedules like school lunches and sports and all the things, all the while we're carrying this quiet weight at home. So why is it so common for women to look like they're soaring on the outside while they feel completely silent on the inside?
Soaring on the outside, dying on the inside. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because now that I've just begun to share, and it's only been in the past, let's say 3 weeks or 4 weeks since my book came out, that I've been sharing my experiences, there are people who literally have put in the comments of my Instagrams or TikToks that in a million years, they never would have thought that I was experiencing that horror, because they knew me during that time of the marriage, and I'm there doing workshops and career programs and volunteering for the school mom chaperone and blah, 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 blah. And so they never, ever would have imagined. So this type of abuse very often happens to women who are very high functioning. So it's a form of narcissistic abuse. And very often the women who are the targets of it, the scapegoats, by definition, you can go look this up in psychology textbooks. They are high-powered, independent, resourceful. One negative is that they often seek external validation. And that creates a very powerful negative cocktail for women enduring it. Additionally, they're very emotionally mature and very patient. And so yes, it's a recipe for disaster, because that woman does seem high functioning. She does seem as if she's on top of the world. She's presenting very well because of all of these internal resources. But in actuality, she is having very serious problems internally. And very often we see the result in a myriad of ways. Depression, psychosis. The person could be seeming fine until they're not fine and they're in a mental hospital. And then also the physical repercussions, autoimmune diseases, cancers, because this is a high level of stress in performing that well on the outside while enduring that level of abuse in the home.
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this up. I love this conversation. It's so much more common than anybody wants to admit. And whether we're that woman who's super high functioning and experiencing this internal turmoil silently, or we see one of our girlfriends doing it, it's hard to catch this sometimes. And to have you explain it out like this and normalize it in some ways, I'm just glad we're having this conversation, because it's so, for so many women, it's hard to spot. We like to downplay it so much. Now, you have this workbook.
The workbook, Silence to Soaring.
What was the exact moment or realization in your own journey or with the women that you helped that made you say, I have to write a workbook for this. Talking isn't enough. We need a manual to rebuild.
So the silent treatment in my first marriage was something that was very consistent. It was a pattern. Now, healthy relationships do not feel like a pattern or a cycle. Healthy relationships feel like stability. There may be some external issues that come up. There may be some internal issues that worked out, but it's not like a clockwork pattern of love bombing, devaluation, discard. No. That's not what healthy relationships are. So for me, in my first marriage, I experienced a silent treatment, the honeymoon, and kept on experiencing it on average for 2 weeks, every 2 months, even though the longest it lasted was nearly 3 months while pregnant. Such a disaster. So now on our 15th anniversary, I was getting it again. And it was like something clicked. It felt almost like a spell or trance breaking when I finally said, oh my goodness, the reason why this is not ending is because the person doesn't want it to end. This is intentional. Because for all that time, I kept on searching these resources, thinking it was unintentional, thinking it was a communication issue, thinking if I just spoke differently, if I healed harder, if I prayed harder, that it would be resolved. But it was on that 15th anniversary when I said, oh my goodness, if this is something I complained about 15 years ago to this day, and I've been reading all these books, doing workshops, doing this, doing that, joining life coaching, EMDR, Reiki, paying for all this stuff. And it's happening on the 15th anniversary. And I've complained and begged and pleaded. It means it's on purpose. And around that same time, within like the 2-day span, I got a look. And the look, and this is so important because it's part of the challenge of this is, when you're explaining it to people, it's as if they think you're talking about a cat when you're talking about a lion. And a cat and a lion have similar qualities. They both walk on 4 legs. They both purr. They both have whiskers. So you're talking about it and you're like, oh, but he's silent, but he's this, it's a silent and it's so hot. And they just are comparing it to something else. And so they tell you everything's fine. That's normal. Some people don't speak. Men tend to be withdrawn. But I'm telling you, this energy was so hostile that I ran into my bedroom, closed the door, and just started getting on my knees and praying like I'd never prayed before while bawling. And I said, God, you get me out of this marriage safely, and I will share the testimony. And so this is sharing the testimony. This is breaking that silence, because these curses, to a certain extent, on a societal level, are fueled by silence, by having people not talk about it. During those 15 years, I was Googling. It wasn't like, I'm a highly educated person. I was researching and I was not getting the proper information. We're going to marriage counselors. I'm telling them what's happening and none of them are saying it's abuse. So I said, I cannot sit by after, thankfully, I got out safely. We know there's a domestic violence crisis where many women and many families are not getting out safely. I got out safely. I have to share this information.
Just thank you for your candid story, because it's not an anomaly and there's so many women experiencing it. And I want to talk to you now about patterns, because they're so important. I want moms to recognize these patterns, whether it's their own lives or from their in their friends that they want to support. So let's start with the silent treatment and decoding that a little bit, because the silent treatment is incredibly crazy making. Makes you feel like you're a crazy person. And when a mom is experiencing this, she often blames herself and tries harder to fix it, just like you did, just like I have in the past. So can you walk us through the psychological mechanics of this emotional withdrawal? What is actually happening in that dynamic?
I'm so grateful you asked that question. Okay, because the silent treatment targets the same pain centers as physical pain. So you have this entire neurological process, and I'm telling you this, and I want your listeners to understand, it is just akin to someone beating you up physically, where this, because part of the foundation of this is human beings are herd animals. We are born incredibly fragile. You've seen other animals when you watch National Geographic, they come out the womb and they're able to run. And it's like, wow. Whereas as human beings, we are born so fragile, completely helpless, left to the whims of our parents. And so think about it. Evolutionarily speaking, our parents withdrawing from us meant death. It meant death. When we were looking up at them as babies and smiling and so forth, if they didn't smile back and decided to go take us to the forest and leave us there, we're dead. We remember when the one-child law was in China, and there were stories of girls literally just being abandoned on the streets. So as human beings, we are built for connection. We're built for connection. So when that partner withdraws, it signals danger. It signals you are in big trouble. And therefore, we are going to have a trauma response. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And very often as women, the way that we've been socialized, fawn is what happens most often, where we're there trying, oh my goodness, what did I do? Let me go make him a sandwich. Let me do this. Let me do that. We're trying to figure out everything we can possibly do to accommodate that person so that that neurological pain will dissipate. And when the person, and this is where the trauma bonding happens, because the person is the cause of the horror, but when they come back to us, there's some relief. We weren't abandoned in the forest. Oh, we're okay now. And that creates a certain bonding mechanism where the person is both the source of the harm and the cure of the harm. And it's very dangerous. This is why experts in the field who if you read my book, you'll see in the acknowledgments, I have a social sciences, law, and business background, but I've researched so much because I was just, struggling so much. And you have people like Dr. Ramani who say that she's actually surprised that as many people are able to get out of it as they are, while most people say, oh, these DV survivors, why won't they just leave? She's actually surprised at the number who leave because these trauma bonding, physiological, hormonal mechanisms are so strong.
Oh, I'm so glad you explained that to so many of us because it's hard, especially if you're a logical person, a logically brained person. And yeah, you want to hear this, that you're not crazy. This is something that's happening inside of you. And very similarly, I want to talk about self-trust and how that just gets devastated here. Because one of the most devastating parts of emotional harm is losing trust in your own intuition. I mean, ask me how I know, right? This is why we're having this conversation. And a mom might think, maybe I'm just being too sensitive, or, you try to explain it off because you must be the crazy one. So how does emotional harm erode our self-trust, and what is the very first step in getting it back?
It certainly does erode self-trust, especially for women who felt that they vetted their partners. And I want to say this: forgive yourself. Forgive yourself, right? Forgive yourself. People very often when dating are not their genuine selves. They're sending their representative. They're putting their best foot forward. And some people are really gifted con artists. I mean, for lack of a better word. And so forgive yourself. So one, you may have vetted. I thought I vetted. I was there meditating, reading Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra during the courtship stage. I thought this person was so evolved. Oh my goodness, this is going to be phenomenal. We're both, spiritual seekers. And trust me, that was not the case. Okay, so number one, forgive yourself. Number two, recognize that there are a lot of subconscious dynamics at work. So again, in my quest, it's like I sound like I'm a clinician sometimes, but it's just from reading all of this. There's a book called Getting the Love You Want by Dr. Harville Hendricks. And in the book, he talks about the imago theory that we marry or we partner with our most contentious caregiver. And so when we were children, we have two parents potentially. One parent we bond with and we identify with. The other parent we're probably afraid of. That parent may have abusive tendencies, narcissistic tendencies, and there's a part of us that always longs for the love of that parent. And when we don't have when we don't have that parent, we didn't have that bond, and that parent had these abusive narcissistic tendencies, we often wind up finding a partner with that same spiritual and psychological profile. Now, some spiritual gurus say this is a good thing because it is an opportunity to heal. So now we get to self-trust. You've had this experience because of subconscious desires, you end up marrying someone who harms you in a similar way to your original caregiver. And very often it's even worse. If you're not delivered from it, it's even worse. So how do you trust yourself again? And I believe when you go through this process, and this process is in my book, acknowledging what happened to you, going through the grief of the love that you thought you were going to have, because it is devastating. And it's devastating because it's happening the second time around and it's worse. Then you're going back and you're revisiting those childhood wounds. So you're engaging in that inner child reparenting work. So you go to your past, then you come back to the present, and you are harnessing all your resources to rebuild your life. Because I take the strong position that if you find yourself in this abuse, you must leave. If you are being abused, you must leave mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, sexually. Unfortunately, 95% of abusers don't change. You must be the change and leave. So you're leaving and you're harnessing all your resources, and then you're creating your new vision. But this is the beauty of it. Now you know it. And when you are in the next relationship, you're able to say, when you see that abuse, that you will leave again. You know that you will leave. So now it's not about necessarily trusting that other person. It's trusting yourself. That now that you've been through this fire and you know how bad it is, and now that you know that that person is not your source and rather Almighty God is your source, you will leave again. And so you will not allow yourself to be abused ever again, because now you know what it is.
I love that. So coming from a place of empowerment. I want to talk a little bit about kids, because our audience is parents of school-age children, and school-age kids are like little sponges. They watch how parents interact. So how do patterns like emotional withdrawal or the silent treatment between the parents affect a child's emotional development and their own future relationship patterns?
Our children. That is why I wrote the empowerment workbook for moms. People are like, but Amma, I read the book, and you don't have to be a mom necessarily to understand it. And that's true. And I hope non-moms read it. I hope moms to be read it. I'm asking men to read it, but I specifically did it as a contribution to mothers, because there's a certain horror that you feel when you realize you repeated the pattern against your best conscious efforts. You repeated the pattern and therefore recreated a potentially negative blueprint for your children. As a side note, I blogged about this on my Substack. I'll send this to you. There was a man and woman in Japan in which a man did the silent treatment against his wife for 20 years. For 20 years, he did not speak to his wife. He would just grunt in response to things. Yet despite even just grunting and not having a conversation for 20 years, they had an 18-year-old child. And the 18-year-old child wrote like a TV station saying, my parents haven't spoken in 20 years. Can you arrange a meeting? So they arrange a meeting, and the children are bawling. Upon seeing their parents speak for the first time, I mean, they are like visibly sobbing. And the man said he didn't speak to her because he was upset about how much time she spent with the kids and how much time she took taking care of the kids. Okay, so let's talk about the kids. Number one, the kids are affected, and I feel as if this is one of the most horrifying blind spots in the therapeutic community. When you look at the domestic violence wheel of control, the silent treatment isn't there. When you look at the adverse childhood experiences survey, the silent treatment isn't really picked up, but it certainly affects them. As mothers, our psychological and emotional well-being is key for our children. When our children first come into the world, they don't even realize that we're different people. It's like they think that we are like one person. They literally don't even realize that they're different. They have to be older, before they even realize that they have a separate identity. And so they're picking up on all of that anxiety. They're picking up on that fear when your husband walks in and you're afraid of the silent treatment. They're picking up on that anxiety. I personally believe that this is a cause for much of the neurodivergence that we're seeing. And Dr. Gabor Mate has said it. He said that very often, for example, ADHD is occurring due to a toxic environment in the home. I'm not blaming anybody. These are the dynamics that we inherited, that we are now breaking cycles. So are our children affected? 100%. This could be depression. It could be anxiety. It can be attention deficit. It could be autism. They definitely are impacted by that emotional environment. And so what is the work now? And some of these assignments are my workbook. I apologize to my kids. They don't quite get it. They don't quite get it because they're like, Mommy, you didn't hit us. Why are you saying that, you were so bad? Why are you apologizing? But I apologize because They grew up, they did not see what a healthy marriage looked like. They rarely saw me and my ex even sitting on the couch having a conversation. Rarely. They could probably count it on one hand. They do not, and unfortunately, that became their normal. And so now what is the work? I put them in dialectical behavior therapy. I'm looking for another more family systems orientated therapist. And I'm telling them in plain English, it was unhealthy because I want them to break the cycle. So what are my points here? One, they are affected. You cannot hide anything from them. It is in the atmosphere. They are 100% affected, and it becomes their blueprint of normalcy. And so I believe that we worship a God that will restore all that was destroyed, but it will take effort on our parts in terms of, at the very least, telling the truth. Telling the truth. Stop pretending. Stop performing. Tell them the truth. It was toxic. I left because it was toxic. I left because of the silent treatment. Tell them the truth, because there's an internal knowing that they have about it that needs to be affirmed.
And I just want to tell the audience out there, to moms who are listening, that this happens to the best of us, to the best mothers, that this happens. And when you're dealing with emotional harm, your energy is completely drained. You're kind of in survival mode, depending on the situation and the severity of how things are. But that is affecting your children. And what I hear you saying in a lot of ways is, yes, this happened, but this is to know that it is affecting your children is just one more great reason to get out, to start making those steps to moving away from this relationship and healing on your own. And I also hear you saying, because it happens to the best of us, hey, be honest with your kids. They can take this, they can use it as a learning experience. Yes. It does not have to be the doom of all the things that happen to them. They can recover, but you have to take the first steps of recovering for yourself first. Yes. And absolutely brings me actually to my next question to you, is creating those healthy boundaries and modeling to those out there, whether it's your mom friend or your children, how to have those healthy boundaries, because this is one of the hardest things for a mom going through this type of emotional abuse to have boundaries. So how can moms use their own journey of rebuilding that self-trust to teach their school-age children how to have these healthy boundaries and emotional expression that's actually good?
Thank you. I mean, I certainly believe that you're modeling emotional expression. You're not lying to your children anymore, saying you're fine. You're able to tell them the truth. I'm overwhelmed. I'm going through a lot. So one, you model honesty and you model vulnerability in an age-appropriate way. But second, I want to also make sure that people understand that you can't, the phrase, you don't negotiate with terrorists. A part of the problem with emotional withdrawal and silence is because it's not active, it's hard for you to combat. It's not like someone hits you and they hit you back, or someone verbally abused you and so you call them names back. So this is why you must leave. Like, I want to be very honest with you. You must leave. You must leave. You must not be in an atmosphere in which you're ignored. Think about plants. There are numerous studies that have shown that talking to plants helps plants grow. You are a human being. You cannot grow in an environment in which you're being ignored. Additionally, there's this study out of Japan. Some people don't like it, call it pseudoscience, but many people in the more holistic community agree with it. It's a water study in which they had like a glass of water and they were telling bad things, mean things to one glass. And they were saying nice things to the others. And they went and looked at the molecular structure. And the one that they had been saying pretty nice, kind things to had formed gorgeous crystals. And the other one had formed muck. Even though to the naked eye, they both look like water. You are a human being. You're an energetic human being. You must be loved on. You must be spoken to in an appropriate way. You should not be the target of silent and hostile, angry energy, which is communicating something. It's communicating you are crap. You're worth nothing. That's what it's communicating. And so there's no boundary you can put on that. right? Being in a home with someone who ignores you. What is the boundary then? The boundary is you getting out of that home. The boundary is you saying, this is unacceptable. I will not be in this environment, and leaving. And I know it's hard. I'm not telling you it's easy. 15 years. I go through this in the book, just even changing your last name. I had gone 15 years with the other last name, right? That is hard. Figuring out where you're going to live. I am an entrepreneur. I haven't had a day job since 2015, right? Figuring out, is the entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not, because it wasn't easy. I'd be lying to you. But it was necessary when it comes to the psychological and emotional health of myself and my children. Now that I'm separated or divorced, when they go there, I pray they can't be ignored, because it's like for 3 hours, right? Which is very different from having someone in the house constantly going into their room, closing the door. You don't see them all day. They hardly say a word, all this tense and angry energy. I would rather that they go visit for 3 hours, prayfully for those 3 hours, they're not being ignored. And this is the thing. By the grace of God, my ex is just around the corner. If they're being ignored, they can come right back to mama, who will love them and say beautiful things to them and call them healthy, whole, integrated men of the kingdom, and give them a hug. There's a sanctuary right around the corner.
Yeah. It's so hard for so many moms to hear this. I know they are, and they're like, but I can't. And it feels impossible. But I'm glad we're having this conversation, because so many women out there, they need to hear it. It's hard to hear. I'm telling you, I know it's hard to hear, but you need to get out and really.
And on some level, they know it's the truth. On some level, they know it's the truth. So this is, I love this author on the topic, Melanie Tonya Evans. Her book is called You Can Thrive After Narcissistic Abuse. And in it, she says that her therapist told her there are 4 options if you stay. This is when she was in a narcissistic relationship. Either he will kill you. 2, you'll kill yourself. 3, you'll have a psychotic breakdown. Or 4, you'll contract a horrible, possibly even terminal disease as a result of the stress. Don't let that be you. We are we are in a crisis right now. The Washington Post just had an article about 4 murder-suicides in some short amount of time, in which husbands shot and killed their wives, their children, and themselves. We are seeing stories like this every day in the news. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that you do it, without thinking. I pray that you will plan. You'll get your safe plan in order. I pray that you'll get support any way and anyhow that you can. It's dangerous to say. It's dangerous to leave, pardon me, but it's also extremely dangerous to stay in these dynamics.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your resources that you're going to give our audience today, because if people are listening to this and they're resonating and they've made it this far in our episode, we know that you want some help, and we are here to give it to you. Oh my gosh, I'm so thankful to Alma for having this. The first is a free ebook that she is offering to the Impactful Parent audience. Can you tell us about your ebook? What's inside? What's it called? What are we going to experience?
100%. So the book, Silence to Soaring, the ebook is free in our community on School. SKOOL. School is a new platform, which it's kind of anti-social media. It's more about connection and learning rather than just posting. So in our community, we send affirmations to everyone every day. We do morning check-ins, evening check-ins, and we have a support group, a free support circle. So before you sign up for it, you get an experience in which, with a trained facilitator, we give you the space to grow. 1, we're asking you how you're emotionally doing every week, so you have that space to express. But additionally, we are also asking you what you're creating. Very often, people find themselves in these situations, including myself, are giving up their authority over their own lives. And we want you to have authority over your lives and to engage in the wonderful act of creation. What are you creating for yourself and your children? And so we ask those questions. We have a support group community, but even if you never join the call, just get into the group where you'll get the free ebook. In the free ebook, you will have 35 empowering exercises. Each exercise starts off with a somatic process of breathing in for 4. Let's do it now. Breathe in for 4. Hold and then release. Exhale for as long as you can. So you're starting with your breathing exercises. After your breathing exercises, I give a reflection. And so the reflection could be on the new identity as not being a wife. And I share reflection about going to a clerk's office and they're asking me what my name is and me not knowing my name. What is my name? That's a good question, right? Because when you're getting divorced, these are things that come up. So I talk about that pain. So I reflect and then I ask questions. How do you feel about losing your wife identity? What does it mean to you? And you write down your answers. And then afterwards, there's a prayer and then there's an affirmation. And so each one of those exercises is taking you through the process, the healing process, right? The process of going from just the painful acknowledgement of what you went through, the grief, the past, the present, and then creating a bright future for yourself. My goal is to see moms thriving. I want you to thrive. I want you to win. And that's why I am providing resources to help you do so.
Yay. Thank you so much for that. And we will have those links down in the show notes. But for those of you who are also watching the video, you do want to go to www.skool.com. So that's school.com/silenced-2-soaring moms. And that's going to get you into the platform where you can start exploring all this great resources for you, because this is wonderful. This is what you guys need. This is everything. The support is huge in making those first steps and last steps in this whole process, because it is a process. And I'm so happy to have Amma here to be able to share that with us. So thank you so much. And I end each episode, Amma, with an impactful parent question. This question is how to become an impactful parent. And I ask it depending on a different question, depending on the subject. And today, my question for you on how to become an impactful parent would be that your work focuses heavily on moving forward with clarity, just like we were talking about. And if a mom realizes today, wow, this is my life. What does moving forward look like? And does it always mean leaving, or does it mean something else first?
I think moving forward starts with clarity. It starts with acknowledging the truth of what's going on and confronting it full on. Sadly, many times we hide the truth from ourselves. And so my prayer is that everyone listening under the sound of my voice will get to the truth of what's really going on here. Trust me, it's a painful process. And I'm not going to lie and say that it's not, but it is necessary, because there is no moving forward without the clarity and the truth about what's going on now. So yes, I do recommend that people leave. Again, there may be, I'm not saying leave hastily. This is after you've already tried. Right? The 95% of abusers don't change, but there's 5% that do. So if you have, once you've explored and you realize that you are not in that 5% that will change, you're rather in that 95% that won't, then I want you to be your beautiful, full, healthy, self-actualized self. And that cannot happen under this dynamic, because you're not modeling the best for your children. You don't want your daughters and your sons to experience this. So please get clear. That is my advice. Get clear.
Thank you for being here today, parents. Remember, you got this. I'm just here to help.
Thank you for listening today. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And don't forget, the Impactful Parenting Podcast is an extension of the Impactful Parent community. Go to the Impactful Parent website and download the free Impactful Parent app so you don't miss a parenting tip that can help you and your family. Thanks for listening today. So go to theimpactfulparent.com and see you next episode.